The Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, is threatening a strike if government fails to address all outstanding issues affecting teachers by June 20. Among the issues NAT is seeking to have resolved is the unilateral freeze on the annual salary increase teachers enjoy and the withdrawal of allowances for teacher trainees.
Greater Accra Regional Chairman of Ghana National Association of Teachers, Johnny Akpakli, also indicated that the Teachers Front is also demanding that government address the issue of the non-payment of vehicle allowances for members who are entitled to such allowances. Of particular concern, though, is what NAT sees as the delay by government to implement the second-tier pension scheme under the new reforms.
With regards to the second-tier pension, we are not amused at all with the protracted argument as to who is the employer of teachers, which is delaying the implementation of the second-tier pension. Again, the Pensions Act is clear as to how the second-tier pension scheme should be managed. For these reasons, we shall not tolerate any further delay in the implementation of the scheme beyond the end of June 2014.
Officials indicated that several meetings and consultations with government to resolve the issue have yielded no results.
Normally when we go, they will say we are doing it. Then they will end it at that place. And then they will drag on and drag on and drag on. We have told you that we started talking about these issues since 2011. And so anytime they call us, they will reach an agreement. But when it comes to the implementation, it becomes a problem. And that is why intentionally we have given you this, communique, which was signed at the last meeting. So it is the implementation that is always a problem. Government drags on its feet, its agencies drag on their feet, and in the end, they never implement whatever that was agreed on.
NAT warned government to take the June 20 ultimatum seriously. The intended strike by NAT brings to 3 the number of teachers groups making demands on government.
Well, the National Union of Ghana Students, NUGS, has expressed worry at what it says is the near collapse of the Ghana Education Trust Fund due to government's failure to release funds into it. According to National NUGS President Sami Bingfudakwa, delays by government in reimbursing GET Fund is taking a toll on projects and students who depend on it.
A statement issued by NUGS at a media briefing in Accra says government in 2013 paid only 133 million cedis out of the 691 million cedis due the fund. It says the situation is not only affecting students who rely on GET Fund in school, but is also threatening the education of students who rely on GET Fund scholarships abroad.
In total, there is an astounding bill of 555 million that the government must transfer into the fund. It is more disturbing to know that these are monies that have been paid by the taxpayer to be transferred to the fund within 30 days, purposely toward the development of education in Ghana. But the President Mahama-led administration, through the Ministry of Finance, has deliberately refused to comply with the GET Fund Act, Act 2008, that's Act 581. All these have led to serious setbacks in the development of education in Ghana. There have been several distress calls from students who are on GET Fund scholarship abroad. They are now being threatened with imminent dismissal from their respective institutions due to non-payment of their fees because they depend on GET Fund, and the fund too is not getting funds to be able to give them their scholarship fees.
It is calling for the reconstitution of the boards for GET Fund, Students' Loan Trust Fund, and the National Youth Authority, whose term it says expired in 2012. It also called for immediate reinstatement of the allowances paid trainee teachers and nurses, which have been scrapped by government.
That the government reinstate nursing and teacher trainee allowances that have been scrapped by the government for no justifiable reasons. In fact, the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Education can be described as ministers of withdrawals. All that we hear these days about that, this has been withdrawn, this fund has been withdrawn, that has been withdrawn. You ask yourself what they bring in place. Everything that exists to make good for people, students and teachers, are being withdrawn. It is even more mind-boggling to know that in the midst of all these challenges regarding cost of education in the country, the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Finance are seriously contemplating the withdrawal of all forms of subsidies and subvention to the public tertiary institutions in the country, especially the various public universities.
The National Union of Ghana students stressed that attempts to get government to hear them has proven futile and that government would have to respond to their demands in 2 weeks. Matilda Pamaga for Joy News.
The nominations for the opposition New Patriotic Party flag bearer contest should open next month once a tentative date of June 6 is approved by the National Executive Council. December 6 has also been proposed by the party's steering committee to organize Congress to elect a presidential candidate for the 2016 elections. The proposals are in fulfillment of requirements in the party's constitution that when the party is in opposition, a flag bearer is elected 2 years before the next election. The constitution also requires nominations are opened 6 months before the Congress. The proposals are subject to approval by the National Executive Committee and the National Executive Council. NPP Chairman Paul Afoko spoke to Joy News' Joseph Opoku Gakpo after a National Executive Committee meeting today, which was attended by 2012 flag bearer Nana Akufo-Addo and his running mate, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Which is my very first one, and we took a proposal from the steering committee of a suggested timetable, but we haven't firmed it up yet. We will firm it up next week. Then we can confidently tell you the dates that we are going to be holding our flag bearer contest.
But certainly it's going to be before the 6th of December.
Well, that is what the Constitution says, that 6th of December, that would have given us 6 months from the day we open nominations. So that is the anticipated date. That is the target date we are working towards.
And so when do you expect the nominations would be open, for example?
That is why that date has already been firmed up. You see, we have a few steps to take. One of the steps, a very important step that we have to take, is to constitute our National Council, because outside of Congress, the highest decision-making body of the party is the National Council. Now, if National Council is not in place to give the go-ahead, then whatever we do can actually be challenged. So we need to take very deliberate steps to ensure that whatever we do, we are on the right side of the law.
When do you hope to get that done?
ASAP. Don't forget that we spent 8 months in court, even though the court petition was very important, absolutely important to this party and to this country. But it was also 8 months lost to the party, because according to our timetable, the National Executive should have been elected about a year ago. All of that has had to take a knockback. So we really have to put our foot down on the accelerator to make sure that we catch up.
Paul Afoko justified the participation of Nana Addo in today's meeting to plan the upcoming Congress, despite his intention to contest, assuring his administration would be fair to all candidates.
I was not here as a candidate. Nana Addo is here as somebody who, under the constitution of the party, has a right to attend. That's why he's here. So if the others, if they had those rights, I'm sure they'll be there. I know that there were in that room 2 or 3 other people who have signaled their interest in contesting. They were there because they qualified to be there under some other dispensation, rather than the fact that they are going to be aspirants or that sort of thing. So
and assure that the process will be free and fair approaching the Congress to elect a flag.
This is what I promised the party when I went around campaigning, that if we don't have a free and fair process and a level playing field, we will end up having disgruntled elements who then would not pull their weight when the time comes for us to go into a general election. I am mindful of that, and I want to create that level playing field where everybody will go through the process, and when they have lost, they can turn around and say the process was fair, we lost fair and square, the chairman was an honest broker, and he provided us with that level playing field. I don't want anybody coming out of the process and say, Chairman was very partisan. He declared his support for one or the other aspirant, and that person has turned out to win, so Chairman must have done something underhand. I don't want to do that. I will stay neutral. I will create a level playing field, and there'll be winners and there'll be a winner and there'll be losers, so we can go.
In other news, the Executive Secretary of the Coalition of NGOs in Water and Sanitation, CONOAS, Ben Arthur, has sharply criticized Metropolitan, Municipal and District Chief Executives, he says, should be blamed for the current sanitation crisis the country is experiencing. According to Ben Arthur, the situation could have been contained if the MMDCs had done their work well.
Ben Arthur believes that it is the responsibility of the Metropolitan, Municipal and District Assemblies to provide places where the waste generated from the various homes can be disposed of.
They are failing us because the government, as a central government, is there to provide the backup support. Because they sign the contract with the service providers, they collect the money with the service providers. So you don't turn around and ask the central government to provide money, something that you generate fund for. You don't turn around. Fine, if you are in a difficulty and you need some assistance, fine. But it is the primary responsibility of the district assembly to provide these services to the citizens. All of us know we are generating the waste. And all of us know that when the waste has been generated, there should be a place to keep it.
Mr. Arthur further posits that another cause of the sanitation worries is because of the poor level of investment in the sector and the non-enforcement of the bylaws at the district level.
The investment in the sanitation sector is woefully inadequate, and unless and until we put the money, they will have challenge. All the district assemblies have bylaws which govern how sanitation is delivered. But what we are seeing is that there is no enforcement of these bylaws. If you don't have the enforcement, you see somebody dumping, the person is arrested by the environmental health officers. When the person is being processed for court, then you hear some big man calls, this is my niece, this is my this thing, can we talk about it? And the case is dropped.
Derek Ekosam, Joy News, Accra.
Chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises, Joseph Amenowode, says Ghana is suffering from a locus of unemployable youth who lack the requisite expertise needed for the nation's industries. He decries a situation where graduates have to go through a retraining process before they can fit into the job market.
Joseph Amenowode, who is also Member of Parliament for Afajato South in the Volta region, made their remarks at the maiden Open Exhibition Day celebrations of the Harvey Technical Institute. He explained that government is making efforts to bridge the gap between academia and industry by reinforcing tertiary institutions to provide graduates with the needed skills. He was also of the view that, considering the role technology plays in development, there was the need to establish more skills development institutions. He challenged technical students to see themselves as instruments of change in the socio-economic development of the country. The principal of the Harvey Technical Institute, Jackson Maunyo Afram, expressed grief at the lack of infrastructure and modern equipment for practical purposes in the school's workshop. He added that about 70% of the buildings on campus were constructed by students under the supervision of their teachers. He also called on government to complete 2 Get Fund projects currently at a standstill.
Time now to get you updated with the world of business. My name is Abigail Adomakoenchi. To start with, government has reached an agreement with the China Development Bank to resume disbursement of the remaining $3 billion loan to Ghana. The disbursement of the facility stalled earlier this year because of some new demands from the Chinese bank. However, these challenges have been addressed by government for the bank to resume disbursement. The disbursement would be advanced towards the gas project to aid its completion, while another disbursement is expected to come soon towards the landing sites projects in the coastal areas. However, Joy Business has gathered that the bank might just disburse $800 million. This would bring the total amount of funds advanced to Ghana to $1.5 billion. The China Development Bank earlier this year stopped paying out the funds to Ghana because they wanted more crude oil to make up for funds being dispersed. Sources say government has, however, managed to address that concern. It also managed to renegotiate with the bank on how Ghana should be paying the commitment fee on the loan. Ghana in 2011 signed an agreement with the China Development Bank to advance some $3 billion to the country for some infrastructure projects in the country. Away from that, an estimated 6,000 workers of Anglo Gold Ashanti are set to lose their jobs over the next 2 years in a massive scale down of the company's operations. The retrenchment affects nearly all the staff at the Obuasi concession of the mining firm, with serious implications for the Ashanti region town, which has always been dependent on the company. Executives of Anglo Gold Ashanti today addressed the affected workers at Adeba. Mark Makombe is the senior vice president of the firm.
It is important that the correct information is given at this time to our communities and to our stakeholders. On Monday, the 19th of May, which was at the beginning of this week, Anglo Gold Ashanti issued a press release in which it said it was looking to address the historic underperformance and high cost structure at Obuasi Mine. The Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Srinivasan Venkatakrishnan, or as we know, Venkat, was quoted as saying, "We have now developed a good working partnership with the Government of Ghana, the Ghana Mine Workers Union, and other key stakeholders to address the challenges facing Obuasi Mine. We must do all we can to stop the current cash outflows and define a sustainable future. It is therefore important that we host this community and media briefing session today to allow the Senior Vice President, Mark Morcombe, the opportunity to share with you information supporting Monday's press release. I therefore call on Mark, if you would, to address the audience. Thank you.
Well, the first batch of workers are to be affected are set to number about 400. Some of them have been speaking to Joy News.
First and foremost, we were heartening because we don't know what will come at the long run. But once now that our managers have openly come out to tell us what is going to happen, in fact, we are all praying that the work will stand firmly and then we will all be fruitful in the years to come. So once that they are telling us some of us will be going home and then others will stay, we are all praying for the sustainability of the work.
But it's possible that you could be laid off. How does that make you feel? How do you see that decision?
Well, as for me, I've worked for 28 years plus, so I don't have problem. I have my house, my children are already in university, my lower children are in secondary school, and I have something down. So the advice that came, once you are going, you know your money that will be collected. Most of us have gone to the computer and work out to know what we all get. So it's no panic.
What we are going to realize or experience in this economy is that our local businesses are going to be collapsed, the patronization of goods and services in the town are going to be reduced, and if you do basic arithmetic analysis, supposing 2,000 employees should be laid off, and each employee has a dependence of maybe 4, okay, as it is now, then multiply 2,000 by 4, you'll get a significant number who are going to suffer. It is better all the stakeholders come together, restructure things, and make sure Obuasi wouldn't become a ghost town as far as mining is concerned.
Well, the Mine Workers Union is meanwhile warning this might just be the tip of the iceberg as more mining firms also prepare to lay off workers. Not too much of a good news for the mining firm there. But away from that, the Third World Network is asking for a review of Ghana's trade policy, which they contend is extremely universal and hinders growth. The CSO also asked Ghana to put in place an interventionist trade policy that targets the development of different sectorial elements of the economy. The liberalized nature of Ghana's trade with other countries has often been criticized, as many argue it is to blame for the country's overdependence on imports. Although Ghana's import-driven economy has further led to the depreciation of the cedi and increased interest rates, the Third World Network says the universal nature of Ghana's trade policy coupled with the underdeveloped production structure has worsened the economic situation.
There are petty, small producers who are dominant in our economy. We don't have any manufacturing or industry to speak of in any real sense. What we have deindustrialized for a long time. Agricultural productivity is going down, and the entire circuit, the integration of the agricultural activity, which means the integration of finance, of technical support, of marketing, in one system has been fragmented. It's now all different private people playing different roles, so on and so forth, right? And we've allowed, at the same time that our production complexes and arrangements are becoming more fragmented, we have worsened the condition by allowing free importing, but trade liberalization.
Jachetano also adds that Ghana needs a review of the trade policy to get the economy back on its feet.
That lack of differentiation, that lack of strategic emphasis, that lack of the use of flexibility, that willingness, the ease with which we give up the tools that we already have, for example, the use of tariffs in discriminating a variety of different ways. You can raise tariffs high today on something that you want to protect, make it low for something, some input that you want to bring in so that it serves the area. That all these, necessary, tried-tested, proven mechanisms and tools, we're just so willing to throw it away because we say liberalize and then cheap inputs will come, cheap inputs in the form of consumables will come, cheap inputs in the form of production inputs will come, our production will become cheaper and more technologically advanced, people will get jobs. Has that happened? We've been liberalized for 30 years. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So do we need a change in trade policy radically, I think?
Ghana's trade policy, meanwhile, aims, among other things, at reducing subsidies on products which compete with Ghanaian exports and developing Ghana's agricultural and industrial sectors to compete in global markets. Abigail Adumakunchi for Joy News. So domestic carrier Fly 540 is clearing the air, and they are saying that they have no plans of shutting down operations in Ghana. This is contrary to suggestions the airline could pull out of the country, judging from the recent closure of the operations by others because of unfavorable economic conditions. Fly 540 has announced a temporary suspension of its operations to restructure its loss-making business, but officials say they are only halting flight operations to improve their services and also expand to 6 other West African countries. According to the officials, this is expected to be facilitated by the change in the company's ownership structure into one which the Ghanaian shareholders acquire the majority stake from the foreign shareholders, FastJet. And we're in the business news on that note. My name is Abigail Adumakunchi. Sports.
Well, the build up to the World Cup is getting intense, and everything now really is about the Black Stars. This time there's some surprising news in camp because goalkeeper Adam Larson Korase could leave camp earlier than scheduled for club side Strongest after the technical teams requested the Ghana FA to release him for their crucial league game against Rosenborg. Ghana goalkeeper Adam Larson Korase may have to cancel his pre-World Cup training with the Black Stars to return to his Norwegian club Stromgujest for Saturday's match against Rosenborg. Stromgujest have been facing a goalkeeping crisis since the departure of the Ghana goalkeeper and want to recall him quickly ahead of this weekend's Norwegian Premier League showdown against Rosenborg. The 26-year-old was on post for the champions when they hammered Sarpsborg 4-1 on Friday, but they lost to Stabæk 2-1 during his absence on Tuesday. Manager Ronnie Deila is keen to have the Ghanaian international back in his team ahead of Saturday's big game. He claimed the Ghana FA has agreed to release the shot stopper and could be on the next available flight back to Norway. Korase has been preparing with the Black Stars ahead of the 2014 World Cup but could cancel his pre-World Cup training to help his club side. He has been in phenomenal shape for the side since he joined in 2007 and captained them to win the title last season. However, Stromgujers fear they could lose the title in the absence of their gloves man and quickly want him to abandon his international duty to play in the crucial game against Rosenberg. It's however unclear if coach Kwesi Appiah would sanction the move to have his top goalkeeper abandon national team training just 2 days before the fly out to Holland to intensify preparations. Very interesting development right there, still with the Black Stars, and the Ghana FA have confirmed the farewell match between the Black Stars and the local select side will come off tomorrow despite threats by the Ghana League Clubs Association to place an injunction on the game if organisers do not accept their terms. There is a seeming confusion at the Ghana League Clubs Association over a purported injunction on Friday's farewell match for the Black Stars in Accra. Garka boss Alhaji Ali Raji is quoted by state-owned Daily Graphic as having secured an injunction to stop the match until the financial details are disclosed. But in a rather sharp rebuttal, Vice President of the association, Isaac Kumson, has distanced the association from the reported injunction. The senior national team preparing for the 2014 FIFA World Cup finals are built to play a local select side, mostly comprising players from the Ghana Premier League. Garka is demanding a meeting with organisers Primeval Consult to know the financial details of the match. The umbrella body for the Ghanaian clubs is asking for an insurance package and allowances for all local players selected for the match. Garka is advocating for a percentage share of the gate proceeds for clubs whose players would feature in Friday's game. Meanwhile, Ghana Football Association President Kwesi Nyantakyi insists the Black Stars farewell match will come off on Friday, despite Garka's protestation. We do some more on the Black Stars, and let's talk about today's training session. And indeed, defender Daniel Opari joined the team and actually bringing the number in camp to 24. So exciting times there for the Black Stars as they prepare to leave the country. They are currently at the State House having dinner with the President, John Dramani Mahama. More of that on your way later in later bulletins, of course. Now let's talk about...
The excitement is speaking as the 4th edition of the Ghana Meets Niger concert draws closer. This year, the show promises greater packages for music fans across Africa and the world.
The Saturday, 24th May 2014 concert slated for the Accra International Conference Center is set to feature performances from seasoned musicians from Ghana and Nigeria. These artists include Ghana's Sarkodie, Shatawale, Castro, Guru, and Nigeria's Davido, KC, Wizboy, and Celebobo. Arriving in Ghana ahead of the concert, Celebobo and Wizboy have been sharing their first-time experience in Ghana as well as what fans should look forward to on Saturday.
The expected and the unexpected. It's going to be big. It's going to be, electrifying. Wizolingo, I can see it's a very big song here, so we'll try to make it bigger than night. Wizboy in the building. Ghana Meets Niger 2014. Don't be found. Don't be told. Be there, and it's going to rock. Let's rock till infinity. Kaije Bolindo, Wizolingo.
I have a new single, Joanna, titled Joanna. Go and get that tune, and you're going to love it. Expect the bomb, expect the yo-yo, expect the Nigerian swag, Nigerian flavor. Celebobo say so. Yo, 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 yo. Cheto.
The organizers of the 2014 edition of the Ghana Meets Niger concert have promised spectacular surprises as part of making the night a true experience to relish.